Well, Ben, welcome to the first hour. Thank you for coming.
Oh, were we filming it?
Yeah, we're starting now.
Cool. Well, there we go.
We can start whenever.
There we go. That's my expertise.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. This is cool.
This is so much fun. So the premise of the show is learning about people who are experts in the field, who have been in the field around 10,000 hours or more. And you've been training for quite some time.
Yeah, I'd have to do the math on the hours, but definitely probably 10,000, I'd say 3 times over at least.
Wow.
I'm not sure. I'd have to do the math, but 15 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like it's probably evolved over the course of the years, but
yeah. Well, I actually I have an interesting take on the 10,000 hours because people usually throw out that number, but have you ever read Malcolm Gladwell Outliers?
Yes.
So I actually think that's where it started.
Yes.
And
well, it's based on a research study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one part of that a lot of people leave out when they throw the 10,000 hours around, at least in trainer world, is he calls it, I believe, deliberate practice. Mm-hmm. So it's not just like 10,000 hours of doing the same shit over and over again.
Right.
It's deliberate practice is essentially just, you're putting care and thought into what you're doing instead of just going through the motions. Because I've met a lot of trainers, there's that have been doing it a long time, but they still suck.
Yeah.
And I don't think they try to get better. So the part that I think a lot of people leave out there is that deliberate practice. Because I go back, before I was a trainer, I got into just working out myself. Mm-hmm. But almost right from the time I got into it right after a back surgery. And, well, not right after, but I had like a 2-year rehab from this back surgery. It took a long time. But I got into working out in that time, and almost right from the time I started working out, looking back, it was deliberate practice, but I would video myself to make sure my form was good. And so I would video almost every exercise I did.
When you're at the gym.
This was before social media. I just didn't have a trainer, so I was really paranoid. I've always been a stickler for form. I am with my clients, but I am with myself too. And so, yeah, when I was like 19, well before I was a trainer, I had this little camera that I would put on like a trash can or put on like a machine around me and just video it. And I wasn't sharing the videos. It was just to make sure I was doing it right. And then I would basically look at my video and just like YouTube a video from a trainer and make sure it kind of looked the same. But I think, and then in addition to that, I have logbooks from every workout I've ever done since I was 19. 19 years now of logbooks and just charting the workouts. So I think that I sort of unknowingly was doing the deliberate practice part of the training before I was ever a trainer. But I definitely think a lot of people just think like if I do this for 10,000 hours and just show up to my job that I'm going to be an expert, but I don't think it really happens like that. I actually have met a lot of people. A lot of the people that I've met that are like the best trainers or the best really anything were probably experts well before the 10,000 hours. But I think that they really nailed that like deliberate practice part of it. So
1,000%.
I think you could probably do 10,000 hours going through the motions of being a trainer and you're still going to suck, or you could, take 3,000 or 4,000 hours doing it the right way and be really, really good.
Well, and that's kind of what sparked, I read that book and that's kind of what sparked the idea for the show, because those are the questions that I was like thinking about. Like, 10,000 hours, you need to put the time in. And also it talks about deliberate practice, and it also talks about having really good teachers and how when you focus on practicing those right things with the right guidance, like how much faster can that accelerate? Because I don't think all of a sudden you arrive when you hit 10,000. It's like it's always an evolution, and I think that some people are just more gifted in the sense too, so can probably learn a little bit faster. And also, what does expert even mean, right? Like it's so subjective, and like science fields versus artistic fields and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. But I do think that the part that I always want to throw out to the trainers is just that deliberate practice part, because I think you know, I always advocate that young trainers follow someone else's program in the beginning. And, you know, I think you learn a lot from that rather than trying to reinvent the wheel too early on.
Yeah. What was your first year like when you were getting started?
Well, my first year of training was, I didn't know what I was doing. So this is hindsight. I didn't follow someone else's plan. But my first year was, I had a back surgery when I was 19, and the surgery went south and it caused nerve damage. And so most of my issues post back surgery weren't back pain. It was all pain in my right leg and nerve stuff, which if you ever had nerve stuff, it's actually, in a lot of ways, it's kind of worse than pain because it messes with your head, but it's like tingling, numbness, pain, but it's not like constant pain. You'll get zingers and stuff like that. But I had a lot of problems in my right leg and was rehabbing that for 2 years. And in that time, I tried this mode of physical therapy called back boot camp, which was basically akin to low-grade weightlifting. Because when you have back surgery at 19, I was always pretty athletic, but the back surgery rehab protocols in physical therapy are usually meant for old people because most people don't have back surgery at 19. So even right after the surgery, I could do everything they were telling me to do, but I was still in a lot of pain and couldn't function in life. But the rehab exercises were still easy for me. So I didn't really see great results from traditional physical therapy until I met this guy named Dr. Rainville in Boston, who had this, at the time, was like cutting edge, called Back Boot Camp. And it was this low-grade weightlifting where we would deadlift milk crates, we would do lat pull-downs, leg press, leg curls, just all kind of weightlifting stuff. And his idea was basically to get you out of that fragile mindset and just get you being active and stuff. And I started feeling better. And then to make a long story short, took like the deadlifting milk crates. I remember my last meeting with Dr. Rainville when he gave me like the go-ahead to not have to be a physical therapy person anymore. He basically, my mom drove me there because I couldn't drive for like 2 years. Nerve pain's a bitch. But and he just was joking and said like, hey, like you can lift, you're free to do anything, just don't do anything crazy like deadlift 500 pounds. So I left and I'm like, Mom, I'm gonna deadlift 500 pounds. So that I made it my goal to just like deadlift. I used to deadlift all the time when I first started, but it was really because of that. Just
was that because you wanted to like prove him wrong or prove that you could do it? Not
prove him wrong. I just wanted to like prove to myself. I just thought like, okay, that sounds like a good goal. I guess I'm always a little oppositional, I guess, but I never trained through pain or anything, but I just, that was honestly why I became into deadlifts when I first started lifting. But it all started with us doing these like deadlifts with milk crates and putting them on a shelf.
That's wild. Are you the kind of person who like, you're just more naturally good at lower body movements, or would you say you're more prone to upper body?
Well,
because you're obviously very good at deadlifting.
So interesting thing there. My first experience with training was with my next door neighbor when I was like 14 or 15. And he was a great skier, ended up going to be on the U.S. ski team for ski racing. But we would do what they call dry land training for skiing. And so it wasn't really weights, but he and I would do a ton of wall sits, and for like, double digit minutes, like over 10 minutes, which if you've ever done a 10-minute wall sit, like it sucks. It's really bad. And then we would do stuff where we would put 45-pound plates on our legs.
While you're wall sitting?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what year this was. This is right around the year 2000, but we would put like 4 45-pound plates on our lap and then put on an Eminem song and basically see if you could like last till the song was over. But we would just do that all the time. And then we would also jump on the trampoline. And the only other thing I did for working out besides that was I had a pull-up bar across my closet. We moved when I was 13. We moved into this house that my room was small, so it's going to make this seem like I had a huge closet, but my closet was like the same size as my room, but it was basically like a big closet and a small room. but there was the door going into the closet. So my closet wasn't just for clothes. It was like where we had storage and everything. But I had a bar there, and I would just rip pull-ups. Anytime I went through, we called it pay the toll. On the way in, the way out, you had to do a set of pull-ups.
I love that.
And so cut to when I first started lifting, Colin, my friend's name was Colin. Colin went to University of Vermont, and freshman year was a strength and conditioning All-American, which is a thing through the NSCA, which is determined, NSCA is National Strength and Conditioning Association, and that's determined by your combination of your bench press, squat, and power clean. And he wasn't a good bench presser, but he just had an obscenely high squat and power clean. And then when I first started lifting, I had a really high deadlift and vertical jump. Mm-hmm. And we always say like it had to be that stuff we did when we were kids, because he's like the only guy I know that like outlifts me on lower body.
Wow.
But we like used to do it when we were 14, 15. And so to this day, I'm really only good at legs and pull-ups, which is like what I did when I was a kid. And I still like suck at bench press. Like pretty much the stuff I did, long story short, the stuff I did at 14 is still what I'm best at. So I think there's probably something to that.
For sure.
Yeah.
You're comfortable doing it. You've been practicing it forever.
Yeah. I mean, like these pull-ups I'm telling you, we would just do like sets of 10. For somebody that's 37 years old, I've done a shitload of push-ups. I mean, pull-ups, not push-ups, and a lot of leg stuff.
Yeah.
So go figure. But that's what I'm good at. But when I first to go back to what you were saying about training, so I had to take a 2-year medical leave from college, and when I came back to college, that's when I decided. At the time, I was interning in finance. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I was just interning in finance with Raymond James. I didn't like it. So the guy that I was interning for, again, to make a long story short, I told him that I wanted to try training, and he had 2 sons. One was in high school, one was in college that played football, and so he connected me with their trainer. So in a very circuitous way, I parlayed a finance internship into a training gig. And so my senior year of college, I would spend 2-3 hours every morning in the gym, like partly working out, partly showing people what I was doing. But I wasn't a certified trainer. I actually wasn't a certified trainer for quite a while I was a trainer. But when I was in college, I certainly wasn't certified. And I also didn't really know what I was doing, but I would just kind of show people what I was doing. And that was my first year as a trainer. Like I probably gave a lot of bad advice in that first year, because it was just like I was figuring it out as I go, and then talking to people like I knew what I was doing.
How did you learn to put together those programs? Were you just like researching online, or what'd you find?
Yeah, so my whole senior year of college, I was a sociology major, but I used to just have my... Oh, you were? Mm-hmm. So, people that don't know, so it's probably like the most bullshitty major in college.
Well, besides social work.
Yeah, unless you're a social worker or a teacher,
right,
then you're never going to use it. And it's funny because a lot of times now that I'm a trainer, people will say like, "Oh, I'm sure your sociology background helps you with that," and I'm like, I don't think you ever took sociology. I took some really random classes that just sort of like I don't remember them, and it's fine. But I think. The way I taught myself training was I just I read more stuff. This has got to be the year I bet in 2004 there's probably nobody that read more strength and conditioning stuff than me. I just I bought every trainer that I respected. I bought all their books, back then it was DVDs. Bought all the DVDs. And would just watch them all, and then even trainers I didn't like I've never had any interest in actual traditional bodybuilding, like the guys that are just all yoked.
Sure,
that's never been my thing. But I would buy all the bodybuilding DVDs, watch that. There's much less info 20 years ago than now, so I just bought it all. I would buy Mike Boyle, Vern Gambetta, Mark Verstegen, all their stuff, and then I would buy Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath, all their stuff and just kind of learned from all of them. And then I would read, there's this powerlifting website called Elite FTS, Dave Tate and Jim Wendler, and I would read their stuff and just sort of picked up bits and pieces from everything. And then tried it on people. And so the first year it was a real mishmash of everything. And then after college, I got an internship with Mike Biel, and then that was that really fast-tracked things. Like when I was telling you could circumvent that 10,000 hour thing, it would be by interning with someone who's like already really good at it, because that I interned for around 6 months, and that is what I liken that to a study abroad program when you learn a language, in the sense of, I took Spanish for probably 6 years in middle school and high school, but I used to bullshit it, just try to memorize for the test, cheat off someone else for their homework, and then at the end of 6 years, you still don't know Spanish.
Right.
But then the summer between high school and college, I went to Spain for 6 weeks by myself and promised myself I would only talk to Spanish-speaking people, and I was basically fluent after that. So how that relates to training is my internship was at a gym that it's a very high-volume facility, and so in the summer they see 300 to 450 people a day, 300 to 450 people a day. And it's run by Mike Biel, who's super smart, and then there's a staff of maybe 30 trainers that are all really smart too. So you're just, you sort of eat, sleep, and breathe training 6 days a week, and also you're doing hands-on training with all kind of people. So in my first 6 months of training, I trained pro athletes. I trained kids that were like 10 years old. I trained a blind guy. I trained all kind of adults. Just a lot of different stuff in so you get way better much faster than you would otherwise, because I didn't have to figure it out on my own anymore.
For sure. Being able to train lots of different type of people in a supportive environment probably makes a huge difference, because... Oh,
way more. Yeah, because you can, if I had got the blind guy before I was working on my own, I wouldn't have known what to do. Mm-hmm. And then all I had to do there was just ask someone else, like, what the hell should I do with this guy? He's blind. And then they'd say, try this, try this, try this.
For sure.
That type of thing. And it was like, you're just constantly workshopping ideas. Every Tuesday we had a new speaker come and teach us stuff. And these are all the speakers that all the trainers learn from. I got really lucky by being there. I ended up there just because it was like close to where my mom lived, but so it's kind of one of those like better to be lucky than good situations. But it was a really good thing ultimately for me. Yeah,
Mike Biel was at your wedding, and
he officiated my wedding. Yeah, he changed my life. He fully did. Yeah,
he's incredible. I've taken his courses and read his books, and so it was a really cool thing to be able to obviously see him in action officiating, but just to meet him as well. He's incredible.
Oh, he's the best. Yeah, and again, like, what are the odds that his gym would just be close to my mom's house? But that's how that happened.
That's incredible. Yeah. So you're interning there, learning all the things, and then all of a sudden you're like, I want to move to LA?
Yes and no. So when I was at MBSC, I also used to keep a blog, and I would write
a training blog.
Mm-hmm. I wrote articles for training websites to augment my income. So
T-Nation, right?
T-Nation, and really everywhere, anywhere that would take my articles.
And how did you get into that?
To talk about the 10,000 hours thing, I don't know, because that was a kind of a long time ago, like before Instagram. So I just had to do this for my. I just had someone help me figure out, but I haven't written an article in probably 7 or 8 years, but I've published over 200 articles. So that means I published 200 articles in I think 6 years of when I first started, because I used to write all the time. And then I've gotten away from that. The internet's changed a little bit and stuff, and I just have less interest in it and less time than I used to, but I've always been really into writing, and I used to write a ton. I'd publish blog posts 3 or 4 times a week, and they were long. Like I'm talking like 2,000 to 5,000 word blog posts, and then I would write these articles all the time.
And so you started your blog, and then what made you pitch to some of these websites and publications?
Well, so I started with, I don't know if you'll even, how old are you?
34.
So, okay, it's about the same. Do you remember Blogspot back in the day?
I've heard of it.
It was like the OG blog. So you would just you would Google Blogspot, and then for like 4 years, my website was truly, I didn't even have a paid website. It was www.benbruno.blogspot.com. And there was no graphics, and it was just called Ben's Blog. And I started it one day on a whim. The second or third day, I started my internship at Mike Biel Strength and Conditioning. And my first blog post was just, hey guys, here's my story. Here's how I got into training, and I'm going to do this crazy internship and tell you about it. And I actually got a really big following on this blog because there's, big's relative, but in trainer world, big, because there are a lot of people. We're still in a pretty emerging field. It's not, it hasn't been around that long. And so this is like 2008 that I'm doing this. So there were a lot of people that were interested in getting into training, that were just, I guess curious about my experiences. And my take on writing has always just been, I'm a trainer first, writer second, so I would just write about what I was doing at work and write about who came to teach us, write about a new exercise I tried, write about a new client situation I was dealing with, write about what it felt like to be an intern. And my rule with writing has always just been like, just be honest with your experiences, and I think that allows people to relate to you in a meaningful way. And so that first blog was just that. It was really, I wasn't really a good trainer yet, but I didn't pretend to be. I think a lot of more established coaches now get really peeved with young people that do social media because they think you have to like get your 10,000 hours first. And I get where they're coming from, but I actually would encourage everyone to start sharing what they do right off the shoot. But where I agree with them is I think you just have to be honest where you're at. And I didn't try to come off like an expert or anything in the beginning. I just said like, hey, I'm learning and here's what I'm learning. And it honestly, I got a pretty good following from doing that. And then one day, also, Eric Cressy used to have a gym maybe 30, 40 minutes from Mike Boyle's gym. And I would go over there sometimes and lift over there and pick his brain. And he and his business partner, Pete, were always super good to me. And I love Eric and Pete. They're the best. And their gym's amazing, too. They now have a gym in Florida as well. But at the time, it was just the one in a town called Hudson, Mass. And I would go over there. And one time, Eric gave me advice on how to start an actual website because there's, he basically told me that, you've graduated past the Blogspot website and you need graphics and everything. Yeah. So he gave me a web guy and I just started it that day. And then I had a website, benbruno.com, where I didn't do anything. It was the same sort of blog, just same.
But your own site.
Sharing my experience. I had my own site. And then that's when I started writing articles. And at first I wrote some free articles. And
so you just reached out to T-Nation or Men's Health
or
whoever?
I reached out, and then also a couple of my friends that had already written articles stuck their neck out for me and recommended me. So that helped. And Brett Contreras helped me a lot back in the day, get on some of these websites and stuff. And I'm always trying to help people that are starting out get on them too, because it's just fast track. If somebody helps you, it's just a lot easier. And I was very lucky to have help, and so I try to pay that forward. But I did. I would just pitch these people, and I got some recommendations from friends and stuff, and then I'm actually probably more qualified to be a writer than a trainer. So I think that helped me too. Is with the articles, I really did put a lot of thought into the articles, and then also too. I'll try to help a lot of my young friends get their name out there, and I'll be like, hey, write this article, and I'll do my best to make it publishable and it'll take them like 6 months. I used to just like, if you told me I'll get you on that website, I'd just stay up all night and just knock it out.
I think there's something to that, being able to just dive deep, get it done, and get it out there.
Yeah, I always, with that, I used to treat my writing assignments like homework in school. Like that T Nation website would publish me twice a month, and they would pay me. So I just treated it like I got to do 2 a month. And so I'd do it on Sundays, and that's just what I did. But the writing served the dual purpose of augmenting my income, but also building my network around trainers. And so when you say, did you just up and decide to move to California? I didn't. I got offered a job in California through a dude that had done, read my stuff.
Okay.
And so I got offered a job working at this training studio, and that's when I was 27, and I'd never been to California, but I just kind of came out here, and the job wasn't a good experience, but I did move out, got me out here, and so I wasn't there very long, but then I ended up going on my own, and that's how I got to California. That's
incredible. Yeah. And you started off training everybody, and you still train a variety of people. Mm-hmm. You train some athletes, you train some regular people like you and me. You have a bunch of celebrity clients as well. And I think something that's really interesting is just how you kind of talk about the differences in how you train people. How would you describe how you train an athlete versus a celebrity versus someone else?
Well, first off, yeah, I do have a very broad clientele, and I've always liked that. There's a term that people in our world, people call what I do being a generalist. And I think that a generalist has negative connotations, that you're maybe not good at anything in particular because you don't have a specialty. But I actually really like being a generalist. I've never tried to be anything different because for me, I like to change. So I don't think I would want to specialize too much. I really like training people from all different walks of life, and I think that the way that I train allows me to be a generalist pretty effectively because really no matter who I train, we just start off with 3 questions. I ask people their goals, their injury history, and their past training history. And I think if you answer those 3 questions, you can get a pretty good plan for just about anyone. And so I apply that to my clients that are athletes. I apply that to clients that aren't, and that's how we get the plan because, for example, I train a fair amount of basketball players. Under the umbrella of basketball players, if you ask those 3 questions, goals, injury history, and past training history, you're going to get way different answers. And so the plan's pretty different, all under the, so even if I was a basketball specialist, we'd be doing a lot of different stuff depending on the answer to those questions, particularly somebody's injury history. I don't really I could probably give someone a program by like taking their name and job off the sheet, just because I think the job doesn't really matter so much. It's more the goals and the injury history that go into making a program. Because, say a basketball player that's 24 with no injuries is a totally different situation than somebody that's 36 with a bunch of different injuries that you have to take into consideration. And so I would, then I also just think from a business standpoint, being a generalist is probably better because nothing's off limits. Right. I just like the variety from a excitement, boredom standpoint, So, for me now, I can say like this week, I've trained a couple of basketball guys. I've had some women come in of all ages. I'm currently training a guy in a wheelchair, which is a first for me. And that's cool and not cool. Like I hate that he's in that situation, but it's something different. I'm learning something new. I think that I have a lot of people that ask me like, why would a pro athlete want to train with you if like you train women or if you train older, you know, whatever. And I think if I trained everyone the same, they wouldn't like it. But I think if you just ask, I don't think individualizing programs is really that complicated. I think it's just a lot of it is just saying what's your goals and what's your injury history. And from your injury history, you can all I really learned from that is what exercises might be contraindicated. And then in terms of goals, it's just like if somebody tells me I want to work on my legs and the back of my arms, like we just mostly do the legs and the back of their arms and take their contraindications into account. That's really all it is. I pretty much just do what they tell me they want to do. And I think, you know, when you are a personal trainer, the personal part is them, not you. And so if you just like listen to what they want to do and do that while respecting their injury history, then you're going to be pretty successful at this.
I feel like you just do a really good job of that, being able to meet people where they're at. And I know that you have certain overarching philosophies that you carry with you, you know, that strength is important and all these things. And there's certain things that I know that you never do with people as well. But I think you do a really good job of, you work with all these different kinds of people and you're able to have a really good working relationship with them, help them meet their goals, help them have fun, all of those different things. So when you're working with like women or athletes, like, are you always focusing on, okay, we're going to do mostly strength and then a little bit of cardio, or are you ever flip-flopping it?
I would say, well, I have a thing that we always say that strength training is the entree, cardio is the side dish. But I think that if we go a little deeper than that, I do care for. I don't think there's only one way to train, and I think that it's a little arrogant for when people do. So, for example, some women that I train, the main thing is that I just think people should exercise consistently, but I don't think it has to be my style of training. I just think you should do something that you like consistently. So trainers argue about minutia and stuff, but like some women that I train, for example, really like faster paced workouts, and some feel that that's like an assault on them. They'd rather slow it down. Mm-hmm. And I think both ways are fine. You know, so people that like to go faster paced, like we usually do, while still doing mostly strength training and stuff. But people that don't like to go as fast paced, we just slow it down. And I think both, you know, for me, I like to make sure that they like it too, you know, because I think we can all agree, like, you're not going to stick to anything that you hate. So I do my best to make people like it, well, knowing that just about nobody really likes what I'm doing, like, that much. It's sort of a thing that you just know that you have to do intuitively for your health and to manage your weight and stuff like that. But I do think I'm willing to bend on a lot of stuff to take people's preferences into account, because I do think that matters, you know?
100%, because like you said, if they're not showing up consistently, it doesn't matter if you program this amazingly perfect workout if they don't come for 6 months. Just,
you know, like for me personally, super fast-paced circuit workout stuff, like hard pass, I'm not doing it. You know, I just I'd rather do just about anything than that. But but some people like that too, and I think it's great. So with my clients that don't, you know, my personal style of training would be, I think, really boring to a lot of people, because I just do 5-6 exercises. There's a lot of sitting around in between, and that's how I like it. But that's not how I train most of my clients, because I don't think they would. So I do think it's a balancing act of what people want versus what they need, and I'm pretty heavy on the what they want part, because I think that matters more than a lot of trainers say sometimes.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Being able to, listen and be empathetic and have them keep coming back, because there's not one perfect magical exercise, right? Like it's not like everyone has to do this to. Well, not even
there's not only one magical exercise, but I don't think there's like one ratio of strength training to cardio that, you know, when people ask me like what's best, it's partly like I can tell you what I think's best, but you know, if you don't like it, then you gotta, you know, I do think everyone for long-term health and fitness would be served well to do some combination of strength work, cardio work, and mobility work, just to like be healthy and age gracefully. But I think that the way that you divvy up those three things can vary, depending on what you're naturally good at and depending on what you like. Some people that are naturally mobile probably don't need to spend as much time on that, but people that are super tight should probably spend more time on that, even if they don't like it, just so they, aren't in pain when they get older. And I think that people that are naturally strong but suck at cardio should probably do some cardio to make up for that. But if you hate cardio, you don't have to become like a runner.
100%.
But doing those three things in some sort of proportion, I think is really helpful.
Yeah. I have one guy who I train who's awesome, and we kind of go in different phases. So after each phase, he sends me an email of his things that he's like, okay, I really want to do an exercise like this, or I really want to focus on this. Mm-hmm. And so he gives me all of his thoughts and ideas for things that he wants to include. And so I'll be like, okay, here's how we can kind of cherry pick some of these things to help him, first of all, feel like a part of the process and do things that he thinks are fun. And so it's the things that he wants, and then we put all of the other things that he needs around it.
Yeah, totally. The only time I say no is when people send me stuff that I know isn't good for them. Like,
this is going to hurt you.
If they want to do something, but I know they have a specific injury that's going to make it worse, then I...
Of course.
But I'm not married to any one way of doing it, for sure.
Yeah. The older I get in life, the more I try to zoom out. And in all areas, in training, in nutrition, in, every single aspect, and kind of look at where are these other perspectives coming from, and like, why do these people believe what they believe, and all of that kind of stuff. And it just gives a more holistic perspective. And even if I disagree with it, or I would never personally do it, I think it helps you have more empathy for people who are into, like, I'm not a, dance cardio kind of person. Like, I think it's fun to watch my friends do it, but I'm never going to be that person.
Same, just because I don't have rhythm. I probably would if I could do it, but
I can see you doing it.
No, I'd just be embarrassed. No, but I agree with you, and I do think that you should, as a trainer, take your clients' wants into consideration. And I do think that I always say that trainers that have a my way or the highway mentality, there's a word for them, and that's broke. Because over time, like, people aren't going to want to train with you.
For sure,
it's just what
I mean, that probably goes across any industry.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's just a human thing.
Yeah.
So what skills do you think make a great trainer? What would you recommend people work on?
Well, I think, there's a saying in our world that it's part art, part science. And I think that you probably need to improve on the side of that you're not naturally good at. So, for example, my mentor, Mike Biel, used to have this thing that he wanted to hire. The only certification he cared about was a CNP, and that's a certified nice person. Because his, I think the longer version of it, I might not get it exact, is that I can teach you what I need you to know, but I can't teach you not to be an asshole. Mm-hmm. And I actually really like that. But I also think that there's a lot of people in our world that have good people skills that could stand to learn the X's and O's more.
Oh, for sure.
And the best trainers nail both. So part of it is just being able to connect with a lot of different kind of people. And that's the part that's really hard. I used to do a lot of like trainer seminars and stuff, and I really struggle with it because I'm pretty open with my programs. I just put them out there. Like, you can really you could access the exact programs I do with my clients, but I would see these people at seminars and that were just like not where they want to be, but I talking to them, I'm like, you're just like annoying people. I don't really know how to explain it, but like, I just would think to myself, I don't think this person's ever going to be a successful trainer because there's a human element. And then I actually think you can get a lot farther in our world just by good people skills than you can being a good trainer. There are a lot of really successful trainers that I see that I wouldn't necessarily in my heart say are good trainers in terms of the X's and O's of training, but people just like them. So they're successful. And then there are but I think that we can learn from that because a lot of people online, a lot of trainers with 1 million certifications just sit around talking shit about everyone and they have no clients because nobody likes them. So I think that there's, whenever I see a bunch of trainers that have no clients talking shit about a successful trainer, I'm like, joke's on you, man. Like at the end of the day, the joke's on you, because you're sitting around bitching to a bunch of people that don't train anyone either. And I mean, this person's out there putting points up on the scoreboard. So I do think it's part art, part science, and it's really important to be honest with yourself where you need to improve.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. Having good people skills brings you to that next level, but you have to be able to keep people safe, get them the results that they want, and keep them coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I've hired a couple trainers to work in tandem with some of my clients and stuff, and all I really ever think is the client going to like this person? Because, when I do it, I give them the program.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So it's like, I know the
programming's going to be good.
The program's going to be whatever. So I just think, is this person going to connect with them? And that's really all I care about.
So you train, you have the kitchen at your house, your gym at your house. Someone comes in, they knock on the door, they walk through the garage. What is a training session like?
First session or just a regular session?
Let's go first session.
First session. So before the first session, we've had a call where we talk about those three things I talked about: goals, injury history, past training history. So I have an idea what we're going to do. When they first walk in the door, we do a little movement screen, which I would, if you're familiar with it's called the functional movement screen, the FMS. It's kind of a poor man's version of that. It's just 4 tests. I don't really get too anal about the movement screen, because all I'm looking for is, are you capable of doing my beginner program?
Yep.
And if the movement screen shows me that they are, then we just start with that. If the movement screen shows me that they have any severe movement limitations, which might make certain exercises problematic, we just nix those exercises. And then we just start with a moderately hard workout. And we typically do full body workouts, but we start, I would say, easy to moderately hard. Every client gets the same spiel that I'm not the hardest trainer. That's by design. I'd rather you leave feeling like I'm too easy than too hard. It's a long-term process. Training consistently 7 out of 10 hard is going to get you to where you want to be faster than going 10 out of 10 hard and burning out or getting hurt.
We were just talking about that today. We trained earlier this morning.
Yeah, and that's the same spiel I give everyone. I've said it a million times to new clients.
Because it's true.
And I believe that. So
I do too.
And then we, now here's where, when you ask the first workout, why one of the questions I ask is past training history, because the only reason I'm asking past training history is just so I can meet people where they're at in terms of, if someone's past training history is pretty intense, then our first workout will be a little bit harder. And we might do 3 sets of every exercise and push it a little bit more. If someone's past training history is not much or nothing, it's super basic. We'll just do a couple exercises, 2 sets of everything, try to minimize soreness, and build over time.
What's the art part like?
The art part is, well, it's interesting. A lot of the clients I get now are people that I've met socially first, so I already know a little bit. So, but sometimes if I've never met someone, it's just asking, same questions you'd ask like on like a first date. Where are you from? Like, tell me about yourself. Just talking about, where they're from, what they do. A lot of it isn't going, like, I'm not like going too far back. It's just like talking about what they're up to this week. I don't know. It's like just conversational questions. Right.
Something I've noticed about you is you're good at talking to anyone. You'll be out at a restaurant, you're schmoozing with the waiter and like all these people. You have good people skills like that.
I don't know if I'm schmoozing so much, because I actually hate stuff where I have to schmooze. But I come from a town of less than 1,000 people, where because my mom's like I am. Where I'm from, we don't even have mailboxes. You go to the post office to get the mail, and everyone just talks at the post office about, nonsense. You just, talk to other people in the town. And I think that's just kind of how we both are. My mom moved to a new city in Florida and had like 30 friends in a month. And I just thought, like, because, kind of made sense to me because I think we just talk to people. I actually have had to, because I've lived in 2 cities now, New York and LA, where I learned like you actually just can't go walk up and talk to people because they think that's weird. But I do sometimes. It's just sort of, that's in my nature to just, and I think, you know, there's a lot of really nice people out there if you're just like open to it.
It's funny because in the Midwest, people talk to each other too. It's a weird concept on the coast. But, but yeah, it is interesting when people kind of like look at you confused, like you're talking to me right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
For sure.
Quick sidebar about your mom. At your wedding, she was so sweet. And
oh, yeah.
I told you she's tearing up the dance floor, and Dennis and I were out there too. And we locked eyes at this one moment, and she was just like, oh my gosh, I've followed you since you moved to LA.
Well, she follows all my friends.
Yeah,
and
she'll
continue.
Wonderful.
Yeah, she's a ride or die in that way.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she
so
follows
sweet.
you, and anything you recommend, she probably tries. And she's great. Like
well, it's just so cool. Like my mom is the same way.
Yeah.
She like is friends with all my friends, and my mom has messaged you
Oh,
before.
totally.
I know that she has, and it's just fun to connect like that. So it was fun meeting her.
Anytime I post Dennis, she always writes to me. And
Oh,
it's
I'm
like,
sure.
Dennis is the best.
Yes, and he is. Right?
Yeah.
That's so great. Okay, so I'm curious about kind of the business side of what you do, because you have such an interesting, you started obviously training, blogging, you move here, you start getting a variety of clients, social media, you crush it on social media because you have such a interesting personality and your videos are hilarious. So how would you describe kind of the business element of what you do?
Well, until 6 months ago, I didn't make any money on anything except training. And that was just, I started with, probably like most people, I probably like undershot my rates a little bit in the beginning. And then as I got busier, just like bumped them up a little bit, and then did that again and again and again. And yeah, I mean, the rest of the stuff, well, it's interesting. I've only ever got one client off social media. So
Really?
In my entire life, yeah. And that was because the guy's wife followed me.
Okay.
But besides that, I've never got a client off social media. That's always stuff I've just done. I've always known, so I say until 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I had an online workout program that I'm doing now, but I've always known that I would do that. So I think the social media that I've done for 15 years has like circuitously helped my online program, but it just was like delayed a lot because I didn't make any money at it for a really long time. And then I would say that my online workout program is probably somewhere around 99 to 100% driven by social media, and then 1% by word of mouth. And then my training business is 99 to 100% word of mouth, and I've got one client off social media. So it's just
wild.
It's just different. Yeah, and for high-end personal training, particular, any personal trainer that's busy will always say word of mouth trumps everything when it comes to getting clients. Your best advertising is your clients, because they're just going to tell their friends if you do a good job. That's all it is. Like almost every single client I have has come from like another client I've had, or somebody connected to it. It's all just that.
And is that just thinking like the marketing aspect of it? Is there something that you're saying to your clients, like, hey, if you know anyone else, like when you first moved here and you didn't have a large roster, it just kind of happened?
Well, one, I've noticed I have trained a higher percentage of women, but I just noticed in general, women, when they get together with their girlfriends, tend to be like, hey, I got this new trainer, you should try it, that type of thing, if they like it. Or if somebody sees results, their friends ask, like, hey, what are you doing? That type of thing. And they say, I have a trainer. And then in sports world, I think, if somebody's happy with the results, other people want to try it maybe.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
And then I've definitely benefited, some of my clients are pretty well known. So like, I think I've benefited for sure from the mentality of like, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. Yeah,
that makes total sense.
So I think that's part of it.
Yeah. I mean, when you're connecting with people, then they're like, okay, well now I need to share it with all my friends.
Yeah. And then, I think when you have a lot of clients, it's like easier to get clients. It's really hard in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, I think anybody first breaking in, it's really hard. Anything you're doing, it's probably really hard in the beginning. When I was first starting my blog, you know, for like 3 months, I felt like I was just talking to like nobody.
Yeah.
You know, and I would look at my analytics on the back end of the blog, and it would be 19 views, and I'm thinking all 19 came from me. Like I just kept checking.
And your mom.
You know, probably one from my mom and like 18 from me. But I would be, you know, and if I got a comment, I was like, oh my God, I got a comment. And you know, and then sure enough, you know, I remember I had this blog post that really resonated with a bunch of trainers, and they just all shared it on Facebook.
Do you remember what it was about?
Yeah, it was called Look Like Barbie, Lift Like Ken. But I trained this girl for a bikini contest.
Okay.
Who was really strong. And all we did was like it started off with like her before and after photo. And it was really interesting because her body weight stayed basically the same during this prep, but her body looked totally different. She got a lot leaner and, you know, lost fat and built some muscle, but she didn't look big. And so she was a really petite girl that we shared 6 or 7 videos of her training, and she was quite strong for her size. And it's way more common now for women to lift, but it wasn't in like 2008. So that really resonated with people and got shared a lot. And then the next thing you know, instead of 19 views on my blogs, I'm getting 119 views. And then really what it took for me to get any traction in writing was people with a bigger following to share me. And then it grew like that. And that's probably, I'm sure that's like with social media, that you probably like the only way to really grow on social media is if people with a bigger following share you to their following. Otherwise you're just talking to the same people every time. And so that's how it was with that. And then with clients, it's like you just, you know, you start with one client. Every trainer ever has started with one client, and then you have to turn that into 2 clients, 3 clients, 4 clients. When you have a lot of clients, then, you know, you have too many people. Then you start turning people away. But in the beginning, you just have to say yes to anybody that's going to pay, or even yes to anybody that wasn't going to. You know, in the beginning, I used to train people for free all the time just to get better at it and hope that if they train with me, they'd recommend their friend to me and they'd pay, that type of thing. You do anything in the beginning, and then it gets easier as it goes.
Did you ever have any moments where you're like, I don't know if this training thing is for me?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Well, I remember when I had 2 knee surgeries shortly after I became a trainer, and that was where I was thinking, man, I'm only 21, like, and if my body goes, like, none of this goes. And that's where I started thinking, like, maybe this is a stupid job, because I remember, you know, I wasn't working, so I wasn't making any money. And I was thinking, you know, it's actually made me get a lot smarter in how I train, you know, like...
Personally?
Yeah. Well, you know, like almost every workout you and I have ever done, I call it early because I just know I have a threshold for how hard I can go where I'm still going to be good at my job. Because when you're a trainer, it's actually... being a trainer is actually not a good job for your own workouts because like if you're smoked, you're not good at your job. So I've actually learned, I've learned like when to tap out so I can still be very attentive to my clients and demonstrate how I need to and not be like smoked. I
am the same way. I've got nothing to prove to anybody. And I know, like, if I'm at a point where I'm like, I think I'm done. I call it, even if, you know, my workout isn't finished, quote unquote, it's not a big deal. I mean, at the beginning of, or at the end of last year, I broke my toe, and like 3 weeks later, you broke your toe.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yes. And it's, I mean, knock on wood, thankfully I haven't had too many injuries in adult life. I had, you know, a bunch as an athlete, but it sucks when you can't get around, and even something as small as a toe, it makes a big difference in how you're able to do your job. Yeah,
but I definitely train like slightly less hard than I used to. But I remember the first time I had knee surgery, I was thinking like, man, this is really gonna be tricky. And then I had a follow-up knee surgery 2 years later, and that's when I was like, am I really in the right job? Like, I don't know if I want to be, because I'd always learned that you make more money with your brain than your body. And I still think that to be true. So I think it's really important to take care of your body, for anybody, but particularly when your job is reliant on your body. And then I also had times, I had a really hard time. I moved out here for a job, and that just didn't go well. So I almost moved back to the East Coast. And that's when I was really rethinking things. I thought, like, did I mess this up? And
what's that, like, amount of time? Like, how long were you like, I don't know about this?
Well, there's, like, varying degrees of it. Maybe, like, a month of, like, very much thinking that. And then, like, 6 months of kind of... Well, also, when I first became a trainer, there was a big part of me that just thought, back then it wasn't really seen as a real job. So I think I kept feeling that I was being judged for not having, like, a real job, so to speak. I mean, there's that saying that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I just don't think that's true. I think anybody in any job... I actually heard Nikola Jokic the other day giving us talk, saying if someone says they love their job, they're a liar. And I thought, man, this guy has the best job. Yeah. He has the best job. He's, like, in the NBA. But I bet he hates his job a lot. I bet all these guys do. And
he's so funny. His
post-game
interviews. Because there are times where I can't remember exactly what the context was, but I think they were... he had to go to some, like, parade or something that he didn't know about, and on camera he's like, oh, gotta go to that now. Like,
but there is truth to that. I mean, there's a lot of days where I'm just, where I love it, and then there's some days where it's a job. Yep. And I think that's normal. And as a trainer, it's really hard to do our job when you yourself are going through it personally. Yeah. Because I think that it was drilled into me when I first started training, and I believe it to be true. To your clients, you have to always have a good day. Mm-hmm. And you have to be the best part of their day. And that is normally easy. And then if you're going through it yourself, it's really hard to be personally going through something and have to put on this front. And, so sometimes it's hard. And but for the most part, I've yet to think of a different job that I'd be good at, or, I don't have a lot of skills except taking people through a 45-minute to 1 hour workout. That's like, I've tried a lot of things, and that seems to be the only thing I'm good at.
No, you're a super smart guy. And you obviously don't give yourself enough credit for all of the things that you know about and are good at. But it is interesting, the point of not every day is going to be, like, super fun, because I think that is a misconception. Yeah, you want most days to be you're having fun, you're enjoying what you're doing, but I don't think that's realistic to never work a day in your life.
No, of course not. But I think you just, any successful people I know, I think they just show up and they do what they're supposed to do regardless of how they feel. Yeah. When they feel like doing it, they do it. And when they feel like don't doing it, they still do it.
Well, it's like, it's in work. It's in your workout. Some days we don't feel like showing up. Yeah. Some days we don't feel like eating something that's the healthiest in the world, but we do it anyway. I know. And sometimes we go to Hi-Ho Cheeseburger.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some highlights from your career?
Well, still to this day, the coolest, I trained, I definitely think, I always tell them this, the coolest thing I've ever done as a trainer is train Justin Timberlake when he was performing for the halftime show of the Super Bowl when the Patriots, who I'm a huge Patriots fan, were playing. Wow. That was kind of where I was like, this job feels like a scam. This is definitely not work. That was probably the coolest thing I've done just from a life perspective. And then I would say there's a lot of times as a trainer where I feel kind of in my feelings and, like, fulfilled, where it's different than fun. But I think for some people, strength training and exercise is truly life-changing. And whether it's, somebody that is overcoming, going sober and they turn to exercise and it changes their life, or somebody that is going through a really hard time and they turn to exercise, or somebody that has horrible self-esteem and then working out changes their life. It really is life-changing, and I've trained a lot of women that I think it's really changed their self-worth, and that feels really good. So there's all kind of stuff like that where I actually do think that people probably go into working out with a trainer for like their body fat and their biceps, but then there's like a lot more to it once you like go under the curtain.
It's interesting once you start getting to know people and are able to kind of like peel back layers. I mean, obviously we're not therapists, but being able to help someone break through some of these things by helping them in their fitness. I do think it is a stepping stone to being able to transform lots of areas of your life.
For sure. Well, I know for me, exercise is a really helpful way to deal with stress and things, and I think it becomes that way for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So I do think that for some people, the impacts of exercise are different for everybody, but for some people, they're pretty profound.
Yeah.
And in those cases, there's definitely times where I'm like, man, I feel really good about what I just did.
I can't tell you how many times Dennis knows this, but like we have a Facebook community for our online fitness people, and we'll get people kind of posting about like updates and transformations and things like that. I come back crying like so often because it's powerful. Like these people
that's what I'm learning with this too, because